Welcome everyone, I am Admin1 of ViniFX, and this is Marathon Shadervoid, the Labyrinths of Growth. This is the first ever marathon scenario that I've made. It's an exercise of maximalism within minimalism. It says the cleanest slates become the dirtiest battlegrounds, and I believe that. There's the title screen, of course. There's no theme music. Here's the menu. Welcome to the Shadervoid. So to give a brief introduction, my idea with this scenario is to find out the limits of what you could possibly do within a design formula that basically doesn't involve going into visual mode. So it has basically Wolfenstein 3D style structuring. All of the walls, ceilings, and floors are a shade of gray, with the doors being black. And, for that matter, since this was influenced by the Wolf 3D structure, I was thinking of making human-only enemies. And I recently became aware of this mod made by someone named Radburn on the forums, that is PFHORUMS. A mod he made called Project Conflict, which is basically a bot match mode for Marathon, where you can go into multiplayer levels and fight against basically players like you that are controlled by a computer. It's a really good mod that I recommend. In fact, I'll give a link for it in the description. But I decided to modify that mod so that they were solo enemies that were all together, as opposed to fighting each other as they are in the original mod, Project Conflict. All united against the player, and for that matter I did some basically script trickery to disable friendly fire among them. So you basically fight Marines that use all the same weapons that you do. However, I decreased their hit points a bit because it would be pretty overkill to have to deal with a bunch of enemies that are every bit as resilient as you, the player. So I made them a bit tougher than the security bobs in Marathon 2 and Infinity. The security bobs are those who are in the brown suits as opposed to the green or blue, and so they're the toughest of all. I made these enemies a bit tougher than that, so it's easy to kill them, but by the same token, it's easy for them to kill you. So, I'll do some more explaining with time, but I'm just going to launch into this game right now. It starts at the intro level. I don't know if you heard that ambient scream noise. There are lots of noises like that in this game. So here's where you start out, having teleported into this dimension called the Shadervoid, where all of your comrades have been ruthlessly slaughtered, and you can hear them being slaughtered. And part of the idea here was to make some areas of level inaccessible. I think that kind of heightens the tension and sense of hopelessness that I want the Shadervoid to convey. So you can see there's these other closed off areas with more bodies that you can't get through. You just kind of have to march along through these halls. Now to get these shapes, these textures, since this is a hybrid scenario, I took some textures from Pathways into Darkness, Marathon 1, Damage Incorporated, a patch by someone named Lauren Petrick called the Female Bob Shapes. So this is known as a Kate instead of a Bob. And this, I think, was taken from Marathon Red. It's a standard dead Bob texture, but a bit more gruesome. So the level was to give you an idea of the type of structure and atmosphere you'd be dealing with throughout the game. This main campaign has only 2 levels, including this one, but the game Shadervoid is constantly being updated, so I've got a few levels in the pipeline for it. This here is interesting because it happens all the time when you make levels in this kind of flat square grid fashion. There's a part of the map that does this for some reason, but I think thematically, it fits the Shadervoid, so I just left it there. The Shadervoid is supposed to be this strange, mysterious other dimension that has a structural logic to it, but no one on planet Earth knows exactly what it's for. By the way, these horror screams are taken from the game Unreal and from some free public domain Hollywood sounds I found off of YouTube. So here's where we start getting to our first combat situation. So you can see the, whoops, shit. You can see the orange Marines are the punchers, the fist guys, and the red ones are the pistol guys. Here's a corpse texture from Rubicon. You might hear it have some creepy audio capture noises and unavailable number sound. The idea here is that, this is the area where your people had set up to communicate with the outside world, but the systems were disrupted somehow. It's pretty creepy. And then here's where you exit into the next level where things get real. So, I noticed I got dual pistols now and a shotgun, both of which have plenty of ammo. It's just a fake terminal. There's nothing on it, but before I get into the combat over here, part of my idea for Shadervoid, since as I mentioned it's based around the idea of what you could do without really using visual mode at all, is that, well, the one exception to that is I set up a shoulder charger and a save pattern at the very beginning of a level, so you can always come back to it, but that's all you get. I understand that's probably a controversial design choice, but it kind of keeps with the efficiency of the scenario, and I just kind of like the approach where you basically get all you need. Like, there are all weapons and plenty of ammo on this level too. You always have the shielded charger, which goes to double. You always have a save pattern. So you're not really limited in resources, you just are challenged with respect to how you use them. I already explained that in the Marathon Green video, but I felt it was worth repeating. So once I round the corner, there's going to be plenty of combat waiting for me, and we'll encounter basically troops, cyborg players, Marines, whatever, that use more weapons. You see there's an SMG trooper back there. Oops. There's some alien weapons here. There's an alien weapon guard. In a way, I don't know how well you can hear the sounds, but you'll notice they're different and louder than the average sounds used for Marathon. I took these from a very old sound pack that was actually originally made for Marathon 1, although I added some noises from an expansion of that someone else made for Infinity, and then one sound from, I believe, Blood of Bin Laden or Los Disney's, one of the two scenarios made by J. Christopher Huddy. I basically just wanted to heighten the feeling of intensity and I guess the sense of revenge. Because the idea is that you're dealing with some real scum here. These guards that have infiltrated the Shadervoid and killed their people. There's some fusion guards here. There we go. One thing I learned a lot about with creating Shadervoid is the use of monster impassable zones and zone borders. And that instance right there is one where I didn't do as well as I could have, because it took too long for those enemies to notice. But the idea is that I wanted some enemies to charge out at you and some to stay back. Sometimes I made them do that simply by putting these blocks in front of them. But other times there were areas that I wanted the player to pass through, but that I wanted the enemies to stay put in, because in early test runs of this game it would often happen where, I guess, other enemies in other rooms would be alerted and they would all just kind of pile into this main hallway, so that by the time you finish dealing with them, I mean, not only was it maybe a bit too easy because they just kind of all funneled in, but you'd go through all these rooms that'd be empty and their design would feel kind of wasted. So I had to use a lot of intuition and trial and error to basically strategically place the enemies as though I were their general in myth or something. So here you'll notice these guards are staying put within their zones, and then of course at the very end I have guards standing behind a wall of blocks. Oh shit. It's gotten hectic back there. So despite what I said earlier, there are still a few instances here where enemies might pile out from another room, but still, there are some enemies in that same room that I programmed to stay within a certain zone. You'll also notice that all the enemies drop a clip of ammo for whatever weapon they use, the one exception being the fist guards, who drop grenades for the assault rifle. I really need to get to the assault rifle. Actually, I'm not even sure if I put a second shotgun in this level. I might have just forgotten. However, for the next Shadervoid map I made it so that you had all the weapons at the beginning. Here we go. So as you can probably see with this game, I wanted to explore the different kinds of challenges you could find when you structure these kind of flat rooms based on things like monster impassable zones. Sorry, monster impassable. I guess it's zones and then zone borders. And also platforms and these 0.4 world unit tall blocks, which are basically like the barrels you would find in Wolfenstein. I also wanted to find a way to make this level connected, which is why there are windows into these different rooms that you have to watch out for, since guards can shoot out at you from them. But you still have to take a pretty perilous route to actually get inside and deal with some of the other enemies. Also, it bears mentioning that with the exception of the intro level, all Shadervoid levels are meant to be extermination, so you have to kill everything in it in order to proceed. I also made sure to make plenty different situations that would call for different weapons. And since the enemies don't take much damage to kill, it helps make all of the weapons pretty useful in a way. By the way, this is from Pathways into Darkness, and this is from Tempo Sirai. Part of the idea is that the Shadervoid itself may very well be an entity. I actually haven't totally decided on whether that's the case, but it's sort of hinted at. And that would be the easy explanation for why there's little scenery like that. Although some scenery could be said to be from these guards that you fight, who I claim are part of a force called Tribecom. For example, there's a Nazi medallion, which I also took from Pathways into Darkness. Wow, they're piling out there. Ah, shit. Pretty dramatic, overwrought scream, isn't it? Well, I'll try a different area this time. I think I killed the other one too. But yeah, this is another instance of guards staying in their areas, not coming out, so you have to really go around and engage them. While also making sure while you're running that you don't lose track, because there's so many obstacles in the way. See, there's the Nazi medallion. So it's implied that you're basically fighting a different version of the Nazis. Don't know where that guy came from. Anyway, we've got the south part of the map taken care of. I think these fist guards on the corner from entrances are the main guys who I kept as deaf guards, since their vision is straightforward enough and they're just staying stationary close by, that can work. Oftentimes when I try to make deaf guards basically like ambush enemies, it wouldn't work, because you'd have to be like within a very narrow range of their view in order for them to actually alert, even if you killed their friend right next to them. Of course, what would an admin 1 level be without crushers? This is one where you really have to use your senses and be patient. Here we go, yep. Put in dual shotguns. Alright. That area can be a little nerve-wracking. I suppose I could have had like a blockade over here. There's an ambushing shotgun guard. I have a lot of ambushing close range weapon guards here. There's a flamethrower guard there. Another one. And a shotgun guard. And a fist guard. I wanted to design this level so that it wasn't linear. You could tackle areas in whatever order you want. Almost, anyway. I couldn't do that. That was funny. I'm going to take a break from that. Deal with this area. Whoa, what the fuck? I didn't see that. Get hit by a rocket. That was kind of scary. retreat, recharge, and save. I don't feel like going through any more of this stuff again. And by the way, the first level was called Intro. This one is called What We Do Is Secret, which is the title of the song by the Germs. Threat suspecting. Here we go. Anyway, one thing I mentioned earlier is that I basically disabled friendly fire between these enemies. Basically, the way these enemies were originally created by Radburn for Project Conflict is that they're heavy modifications of different default enemies from Marathon Infinity. And so they were all assigned attacks with the projectiles or the weapons that the player uses, but I found a way to classify those projectiles as the projectiles that regular aliens use, separate from what the player uses, but then I gave them the exact same attributes as the human weapons. Then I made them all allies and made them all immune to those projectiles. It's hard to explain. It probably doesn't make sense the way I'm explaining it, but I was pretty proud that I managed to do that. Yeah, I've ran through this level a few times, and this seems to be the hardest part. I guess not really. It just felt hard because I wasn't really being patient. Like, I wasn't patient just then, but this time I was a bit more patient and I survived. So I think the bulk of resistance is wiped out. As you can notice, there's still pockets of enemies in there. Another thing I noticed that I'll have to fix, that somehow I don't have the right secondary bolt for secondary fire. It just fires the regular bolt. I'll try to find some way to fix that in an update. But that being said, the primary fire for this weapon works pretty well against these guards. Here we go, finally the SMG. See, I have all these different formational ideas for full world unit blocks, 0.4 world unit blocks, platforms, monster impassable zones, zone borders. Just some kind of design vocabulary. There's moments like that where you don't really have time to switch to the ideal weapon, you just stick with the one you got. think that's about everything. I'll check one last time in the right side of the map. But once I kill everything, I just go back to the starting. Well, let's just see right now. Okay, yeah, I still have a few more to get. Then you just step back onto that starting platform and it teleports you out. Yeah, here they are. Funny thing is, I think the rocket launcher, yeah, it's back there, and by the time I get it, I've already killed everything. Yep, here it is. So, that's the whole level. And I quite like how it was designed, really. Alright, that is all of Marathon Shadervoid. That is the main campaign. At some point I might show you another map I made for it, called The Phantom Potential of Convention. Until then, thanks for watching. And I'll give you a download link in the description to get the game. See you next time.